2018, which is a very insane number, I say, how do you do, fellow kids? My name is Jazmine Hughes, and I'm thrilled to be here today as your commencement speaker, and even more thrilled to demand to be called Dr. Hughes on a daily basis. In 2012, I sat slumped where you all are, in my nicest dress and a crinkled gown, and my room not even a little bit packed, ready to graduate.
It sure wasn't.
And now, 6 years later, I stand before you as your graduation speaker, and let's just clear the air, there appears to be some sort of horrible mistake. The mistake isn't that I'm up here talking to you all, as I can and I often do talk to anybody ever about anything, but the mistake is that I haven't really done anything. I suppose that's not entirely true. I did graduate that morning, managed to finish the bottle of champagne that my 360 roommates and I passed around while singing Landslide to each other for reasons I can't recall. I moved to New York and I got a job and another and a third job, which happens to be the job I have now at the New York Times. Telling people that you work at the New York Times makes them kind of crazy. They tell you that you're fake news, or that you're failing, or that you're a bleeding heart liberal, or a buttoned up secret conservative, or that you're qualified to give a commencement speech. I love my job, and it's a peculiar, humbling honor to show up to work every day. But getting that job felt less like a victory and more like a successful scam, like an Ocean's 8 or something. It's also extremely funny that I, a terribly young person, am thought to be able to give advice to you, a bunch of other terribly young people. John Mulaney once joked when he found out that his babysitter was only 3 years older than him, that it was like having a horse watch a dog. So just call me Seabiscuit, but Dr. Seabiscuit, thank you. I really wanted to share something deep and profound with you all today. Words that would grab you by the throat and shake you to your core and actually mean something to you. Language, its complexities and symphonies and stops and starts is important. And when you're given the gravity of something as huge and flattering and ridiculous as all of this, you want to end up in the history books. But for a while, and I would assume that you guys might have too, have struggled with reconciling who I am with who I want to be. I would love to be a very serious person. Someone who's good at investigations and secrets and advice. Someone who would share words today that would be imprinted on your skin for ages, archived in your brain for access in times when you needed strength. I always wanted to have gravitas and strength and wisdom like an old tree. And I first realized that I wanted that here in my creative writing class. Everyone around me, it seemed, was writing these deeply felt meditation on their family or on the moon, and I was just writing piles of jokes, mostly about myself, and I was really embarrassed. I felt corny and unserious, like I had no place in the class, until one day, my professor, Blanche Boyd, shout out to Blanche, turned to one of my more serious peers and said, "That is such a tough way of writing. Don't you wish you could write like that?" She nodded out of fear or fealty, and I was thrilled. I return to that memory whenever someone asks me about my experience at Con. I learned that you can just be who you are, and we're all the better for it. But it turns out I'm actually, like, really funny. like shouts and murmurs funny, like in print, thank you. Like Chrissy Teigen follows me on Twitter funny.
Oh gosh.
And don't forget, I was just where you all are. So I remember distinctly how trite and strange graduation can be. Everyone's hugging you and telling you how proud they are of you and handing you copies of, oh, the places you'll go. But here's the real. Tomorrow you're going to wake up without a plan. You might have a job lined up, or a trip to Europe, or a bunch of tabs on Indeed waiting for you. But for the past 4 years, we anticipated every single moment of the following day. You'll wake up at noon for your 1:15 class. You go to Harris and get an omelet, or you go to Smith and make a sandwich with that sun-dried tomato spread that I still think about. Or gorge yourself on soup and bread. Then come into class at 1:17, take notes, ask questions, stave off sleep, go to the AC, hang out at the library, watch some TV, head to Crowbar, hang out with your friends, go to bed. Tomorrow, you'll wake up at noon. But then you might be gripped by the panic that Harris isn't there, or that your beloved roommates aren't there, or that your significant other isn't there, or worse, your old family dog who takes up the entire bed is there. And so instead of just talking about how freeing and magical this time in your life might be, I'm just going to give you some advice, which means I'm going to tell some jokes. Advice number 1, stay humble. I mean, let's be real, part of the reason why I'm here today is because of my impressive, fancy-sounding job. But getting my job isn't the hardest thing I've ever done and only betrays a faction about who I actually am. Last year, I was named to the Forbes 30 Under 30 list, which was an honor. But when I clicked through to my name and the bio written for me on the website, it was riddled with inaccuracies. No disrespect to Forbes, thank you so much for saluting me. But no, I haven't written any cover stories for the New York Times Magazine, and all of those columns that they purported me to edit were not things I did on my own. And yet, I love my job, and I think I'm deserving of the credit. But had I given myself over to the folly that I had finally hit some metric of success because of some arbitrary distinction, then click through to find out that it was slightly misguided, it would have been terrible. You cannot pin yourself, a solid, evolving thing, onto a moving target. It's easy to let the world, or yourself, define you by your position, or your income, or your clout, and it's actually just a piece of your personal mixture. You're bigger than your business card. Forbes, please don't take away my distinction, because I really like being on the list. Number 2, always take the meeting. This was the first piece of adult advice I had ever received, passed down to me from a playwright at a Lower East Side bar. I had received an email about a job that I didn't want or apply for, and I was waffling about setting up the coffee that they were asking me for. She told me that she was going to give me the advice that someone gave her when she was my age, which is like candy to 21-year-old's ears. She told me to never turn down a meeting. Turn down jobs, of course, or stories, or things that you know would make you deeply unhappy or waste your time. But there is never any harm in talking to someone for 30 minutes just to see. Take a chance. Let the other person have the opportunity to surprise you, or give yourself a moment to potentially surprise yourself. A few minutes are probably not going to change your life, but they might. I have no idea what that meeting was, but I'm really glad I went. Number 3, listen to your fear, but don't succumb to it. When I started working at the Times, a writer I admired took me to lunch because Black people support each other. He was wildly successful by any measure, and he was glad to hear that I got the job, but when I told him my anxieties, he was disenchanted. I told him that I often felt like the dumbest person in the room, and he responded with 4 words I'll never forget. Of course you are. Any person in my position, young, dumb, was almost destined to be the dumbest person in a room as long as I was in the right room. We've all read graduation speeches that vow to incite the genius that lies within you all, that implore each and every graduate to go out and make brilliant work. And sure, maybe some of you are geniuses. I'm not Mensa, I don't know. But it's far more likely that a lot of you are instead works in progress, which is far more interesting. And it's not because you're not geniuses, it's because you're 22. You're testing and you're trying, exploring your boundaries and your dreams and your desires and your problems and your weaknesses and your blind spots. It's possible that some of you will go forth and strike intellectual gold, sprinting towards triumph and getting there without a hitch. But some of you will fail, or change your mind, or switch around, or take some time off, or be thrown off of your track, and that's perfectly fine. What's more boring than a straight line? Number 4 is learn how to read. Of course you've read before, and if you haven't, please come find me after class, because as a scammer, I'm always looking for ways to improve. But I want to implore you to read more, no matter how much you already do. The only reason why I work at the Times is because I started reading it here, as mandated by my professor, Professor Borer, shout out to Professor Borer, who has tirelessly worked to ensure that the New York Times Access is available to every student. Every day, I read the international section in order to undergird my studies on refugees and international relations, which made the theories and case studies we read real. So I implore you today to read widely and constantly and voraciously. Read because you are a citizen of the world, and all that the world has asked of you in return is to maintain a curious mind. Read so that you know the truth about the whole world, not just the one that you operate in. Read so that you know that at least 1 to 2 trans people are killed in the United States every week, according to the New York Times. Read so that you know that the rate of homelessness in the United States is actually rising to over 500,000 people in 2017, according to the Wall Street Journal. Read so that you know that more people have died in school shootings this year than in active military combat, according to the Washington Post. Read so that you know that in many areas of the United States, our public schools are more segregated than they were 50 years ago. So that you know that roughly 18,000 Puerto Rican households are still awaiting power. That, on average, almost 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. Read so that you know that 75% of white Americans only have white friends, an intellectual and spiritual limitation, but one that's certainly easy to fix. Read so that you know the experiences of people who are not like you. My last piece of advice is my favorite one. In her commencement speech to the graduates of Wellesley College in 1996, Nora Ephron told the assembled audience to take it personally. When Hillary Clinton, then the First Lady of the United States, was criticized for not knowing her place, it was an attack on every woman, Nora told them. Any move to limit abortion rights, whether you believe in abortion or not, was an attack on every woman's ability to decide her own way. It's easy to follow my advice and imbibe all of the news and feel clobbered by the multitude of inequalities that populate our planet, to take that feeling and harden it into apathy or distance in order to keep your head above water. It is tempting, but it is useless. You have had the immense, indescribable privilege of existing on this campus for the past 4 years. Of course, I don't know what waited for you beyond it, during holiday breaks and the long summer, but for 4 long years, you've had Connecticut College as a refuge, a sanctuary of people who work tirelessly to ensure your safety, your livelihood, and your education. The world outside of all of this is very likely vastly different from what it has been for you these past years. And still, it has been made good for you and people like you, rendered in your image, designed for your taste and comforts. Make it good for someone else, and when it's not, take it personally. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Jazmine, for those really uplifting words and very real words and funny words and hopeful words.
Oh.
And on this very special day for the class of 2018.
Okay.